A show about the wonders of kids playing outdoors being reviewed by someone who hates going outside. As I sit here with my wild robot shirt. Maybe I just, even though I don't like going outside, I just like things that take place outside and talk about how great outside is. And analyze that. I don't know, there's probably something there. So I just watched Craig of the Creek, season one. I originally I've heard about this show a couple years after it came out. I didn't really think much of it after that. I was like, oh, another Cartoon Network show. Okay, and just kind of moved on with my life. Then I saw a video tail end of December. A obscure little known YouTuber named the Mysterious Mr. Enter talked about every single Cartoon Network show for his CN Real series, half of them at least, because he only did the first half this year. One of the shows he did was Craig of the Creek, and he described it as his favorite show of all time. And he was saying like it's amazing, and he was saying it was really funny, and I was like, okay, you know what? If he's like saying this is one of his new favorite show of all time, I'm gonna have to at least check it out, see what all the hype from this one person who's usually very hard to please is about. So I went ahead, watched the first episode, and I liked it. And then I went ahead and watched the rest of the season slowly, gradually. It took me a bit of time, as you can tell, because I first started watching this show like tail end of December. Now it's almost mid-April. But yeah, finished season one. I rather enjoyed it. I thought this was a very good season of television. Easily best part of the show. The characters are pretty much all great. There's a couple I'm not a big fan of, but I will get to that later. But yeah, not only are the three main characters, Craig, JP, and Kelsey, great, but also a lot of the side characters are really interesting, from like the main recurring ones to like some of the ones who only get one or two appearances so far. And they're all a lot of them are very likable, and the three main characters have like great chemistry. They work off of each other really well, and they're also all very unique. Like Craig can be a bit finicky with how he plays with others and how he kind of spends his time, but he's a kid, you get that. And plus, like he's definitely someone I believe is meant to, at least implied to be on the autism spectrum. Wouldn't surprise me. JP is just really funny. He's the insane, wild person who just like always says the craziest stuff. He's the Sheen Estevez of this series, kind of. But also, and Kelsey is like she is obsessed with medieval times. Like she literally cosplays as a female knight all the time. She carries a plastic sword. She's very much a big ball of energy that just wants to get into a fight all the time. But she's also very funny, and again, there are also some very interesting stuff they do with her dramatically. And all the voice acting in this is great. It's like kind of a mix of adults and kids playing the children, and they all do a really good job. There's one perform a set of performances I can think of that are not that great, but again, we'll get to that later. The animation is like not like okay, so let me put it this way. It's like it's not showing that many amazing things because it's pretty much just showing these kids at this creek. But for what it's showing, it looks very good. All the character designs look good, even the ones that are like intentionally ugly. Like, well, they're meant to be ugly and they do a good job at it. They also do a great job with the exaggerated faces for comedic effect. A lot of the faces that they make to exaggerate their emotions are very funny. um, there are a couple moments where they do kind of go for a bit more animation effort, especially in some imagination sequences or sequences where characters are like reading a book and sort of playing out whatever they're reading in front of them, or they're watching like a movie or playing a video game, and those look very good as well. So I know for a fact they can make great animation just when they are leaving the creek area. The comedy in this is very good. This is a very funny show. I was laughing very consistently throughout pretty much every episode. A couple of exceptions we'll get to, but like for the most part, this is just a very funny show. JP is easily the funniest. He like pretty much everything he does and says is very very funny. And the only thing that like as of this season I'm not 100% down with is the overarching story, mostly because it's overarching at like a very slow pace. Like there are literally only 2 episodes this show that are like building up this greater threat that's coming, and they're not really saying what it is. I get that they're kind of playing the long game, but this is a 40 episode season and only 2 episodes focus on this. At a certain point I'm kind of like, "Oh yeah, this is I guess they're kind of sort of trying to make something with this." Like I guess we'll see what it leads up to. I'm not 100% sure. I am kind of trying to avoid spoilers because I don't really want to know where everything's going, but like I am kind of wondering, okay, but where is it going? No, is it going to be worth it considering how little they're kind of focusing on it every time that they are like, oh, I guess we should focus on this again. And by that I mean the second time they just the second episode that they decide to focus on it, I'm like, all right, this is a little jarring because it's like, oh, okay, we'll get back to this now. Okay. Those are my general thoughts. There are some more specifics I kind of want to get into, and I thought best way to do it, the same way with my Nirvana the Band the Show review, I'm gonna rank all the episodes of season one. I'm gonna go ahead and go through all of them worst to best, and there are 40, so get comfortable. Hopefully this goes a bit faster than that one did, even though I have more to say about each episode because they're pretty different. So, worst episode of the season. And keep in mind, the worst episode of this season is not bad. It's just fine. It's passable. There are still good things about it. It's just, it could have been a lot better. Worst episode of the season and the show so far, Vulture's Nest. For one reason, I did not like the band that they had appear in this episode. None of them can act. That is what I was alluding to earlier when I said there's a set of performances I don't like. It's this band. Thankfully, they're only in 1 episode, but yeah, all the acting from them is terrible. And I was not really interested in this whole thing where like Craig, Kelsey, and JP decide they want to be musicians now. Like some of the songs I kind of liked. I liked the song that the band played at the concert, and I liked the song Craig, JP, and Kelsey played at the end. But for the most part, this was just not a very interesting episode, and easily the one that I would most likely skip when I eventually watch through the whole show after finishing it. Next up is Dibs Court. This is a one joke episode, and the one joke is not very funny. The joke is this kid goes into the stump where Craig, Kelsey, and JP built their hideout. He says, well, I called dibs on it. Did you call dibs on it? And they're like, no. So they go to Dibs Court to try and assert they have the right to their stump. And this is the joke. 4 different times, Craig comes up with this really passionate argument to try and explain why they have the rights to the stump. And the kid goes, did you call dibs on it, though? No. So, and that's literally the joke of the episode. And it's already wasn't really funny the first time. And they just keep doing it, and it's still not very funny. And there are some funny moments I do kind of like when they go to court and they're like, all right, time for recess, and then literally just go to a playground and they all start playing. That was kind of funny. And there are some jokes involving the court itself that are a little funny. And I do admittedly like the resolution where the kids like, it's not like you carved your names into it, and it turns out that they carved JP's name into this cabinet doors because they wanted him to stay out of there. So technically he owns this stump because he has his name carved into it. I kind of liked that. But again, for the most part, this was just kind of a tiring episode to watch. Didn't really enjoy it that much. Not bad, just not that good. And those are the only 2 episodes I would say are definitively not good. Now, because we've already gone to the good stuff, the stuff that I like. Next up is Wildernessa, the introduction of Wildernessa, who I'm kind of mixed on. On the one hand, I think it's kind of annoying that she like hates Craig for pretty much no reason. Like I kind of get, again, kids can be like that, just like, oh, that kid, never met him, don't know anything about him, I don't like him. And like, yeah, that is another thing about the show. It is very good at portraying childhood and like play and imagination, just how kids are, which we'll talk more about the play and imagination later. But yeah, the show does a really good job at depicting how kids would be in real life. But like, yeah, it is kind of annoying. She doesn't like him for no reason, but I do kind of like how she is so passionate about nature. Like, she literally wears like a torn off teddy bear over her head, like the head of a bear, a teddy bear, and she rides on her gigantic dog everywhere. That's kind of fun. And yeah, this episode, like, I do think it has some moments that I like. Obviously, JP has some good lines, and I do kind of like how Kelsey assumes they're like, oh, well, the dogs are trapped because they're in these backyards. They want to be free in the wild. And then the second she lets them free, they start like causing a bunch of problems and start trying to eat all the chocolate that the kids at the creek have. And the dogs can't eat chocolates. That's not good. So, like, at the very least, it's showing the nuclear option is not the good option. Even Wilderness is like, okay, you shouldn't have done that. and this was not like, again, this isn't like the best episode or anything, but it did have enough moments for me to go, okay, that was good. I like that. Next up is The Kid from 3030. This one is interesting because as far as I did kind of look to see if this character appears again. I guess they show up one more time, like 3 seasons from now. But yeah, this kid just shows up at the creek and he's like, I'm from the far future. I'm part robot. And I didn't want to do what the robot makers told me to do. So I came here to like help free all the robots. And again, that is very interesting and definitely something a kid would come up with. The only thing is, he also sings. I don't really like his songs very much. The second song he sings is all right, but the first one and the third one I did not care for. Again, he does have some fun interactions with Craig, Kelsey, and JP. I like some of the jokes here. Like, I like the way Craig's parents are worked in, like, and Bernard and Craig's brother Bernard. I like the way they're kind of worked into the plot. I like that at one point they need to get a new, like, seed, like a new tape for the kid from 3030's like chest plate that he says is his power source, and they use Craig's dad's old stand up, and he's like, "No, it's killing me." That was pretty funny. The only other negative thing I can say about this episode, aside from the songs, which are pretty whatever, is that at the beginning of the episode, there's a whole thing where like Bernard is getting ready for his big high school dance with his girlfriend, and naturally Craig's parents are like giving him all their attention, but Craig keeps kind of trying to cut in, be like, "Pay attention to me too," and they don't. So I kind of assumed by the end he would learn some lesson, like, well, maybe sometimes the attention doesn't need to be on me. Maybe it's okay that Bernard gets all the attention sometimes. But no, he never learns that. Like, literally the last time we see the parents and Bernard is just when Craig has to distract them so they can so that the rest of them can sneak the kid from 3030 into the basement to get the tape. But again, outside of that, good episode, pretty fun. Next up is The Great Fossil Rush. Again, this is all very much like, basically JP finds something he thinks is a dinosaur bone, and then all of a sudden all the kids are getting into it like, oh, we gotta find a dinosaur bone. There's gotta be dinosaur bones everywhere. Again, very much kid logic. And I do like, again, some of the jokes here. Like, I like the invention Craig comes up with, because that's something he does. He makes a lot of inventions. He makes these soda bottles that he thinks will help him glide through the creek like a jet ski. And there's an interesting conflict presented where the creek dries up and they're like, what happened to it? We got to find out. The only negative I will say is that, like, for the first 3/4 of the episode or so, the character Jason, I think, is pretty annoying here. He's not in a ton of the episode, but when he is in it, I'm like, oh my gosh, shut up, please. He's kind of a recurring mini antagonist throughout the season. He's not bad. He has his moments where he can be kind of funny, mostly just when he's either trying to get respect or other people aren't respecting him. But this episode in particular, I was pretty annoyed by the way he's like bossing everyone around to be like, no, don't do that. No, you can't do that. But like, it does lead to something pretty interesting in the last part of the episode that they do with him. Hopefully this sticks because this is one of the last episodes of the season, so we don't see him again after. Hopefully next time we see him, he isn't just back to being the annoying guy who says, "Don't do that, don't do that." Next up is Ace of Squares. And this one's kind of interesting because the new character this episode introduces, Toman, the show off athlete guy. At first, I was like, okay, this guy is not going to be that much fun. He's just kind of like the show off who's like, yeah, check out how cool I am. And at first, I'm like, oh man, this guy's going to be annoying. But he actually gets taken out of the episode pretty early because Craig defeats him at his sport pretty early on. And he's like, all right, you win. Have fun. And again, it is kind of funny when all the kids at the creek now are just like going up to Craig and like, I am gonna take you down. Your slot is mine. But then Craig gets kind of annoying because he all of a sudden starts acting really boastful, like he goes to the same extreme that Homan did, like, all right, I'm gonna defeat all of you, and he like makes up all these stupid rules to Foursquare so he can stay in the top board. And again, they do something interesting with Toman when Craig realizes he's gone too far. He goes to him to ask him to take the slot back, and he's really chilled out. He's like, "No, that's not me anymore. I'm doing gardening now." And again, like I make it sound kind of dumb, but it actually is kind of interesting that he kind of goes through an off-screen character arc in an 11-minute episode. And again, it does end on a nice note where Craig sort of allows another kid to beat him, and then he's like, "You make the rules now," and the game becomes fun again. But yeah, Craig is the antagonist of the episode, can be annoying, and I guess it can't really fault Toman for being annoying in the first part because again, he gets better later on in the episode. Next up is Jessica Goes to the Creek. And this is kind of like a standard, sort of like just another episode. Like Craig and Jessica get locked out of the house. Craig's like, "Well, I'm fine because I'm going to the creek," but Jessica likes to hang out at home, so she can't stay at home, so Craig has to take her to the creek. Again, there are some funny moments here. Like I like when she's like, "I have to watch my show," and so JP like makes up this fake like investment thing, like that Mad Money show where he's like, "Oh, you should invest in this because it's going up." Like that was kind of funny, and there's some funny moments here and there. But this is also the episode where we're introduced to Jason, and he's not bad here. He's just kind of like, okay, why are you so mad at them? I don't understand that. And it is like, it's not like Jessica is annoying. It's just she doesn't add much outside of her interactions with some of her interactions with the characters. I was overall just kind of like, honestly, I am like hoping that you're not in most of the show, and she isn't, thankfully. Like again, the thing Craig comes up with, like the defense system for his friend's stump, is pretty interesting, and it's where we get his iconic line, "Just like I drew it," which only appears one other time in this season, but apparently it's his catchphrase, I guess. Whatever. But anyway, yeah, not a bad episode. Like this is still a good episode, just not probably one of the most standard episodes of the show. Next up is Too Many Treasures, and this is where we're starting to get, like, we are definitely starting to get to the pretty dang good episodes. Like this one is interesting because, like, well, mostly because it introduces us to one of my like characters that background characters I really liked, who has not gotten much attention since his first appearance, this Junk Lord. And I don't know, I just thought he was pretty fun here, as he has like this giant junk pile of like different trash things, and he kind of uses them to his advantage, and like he's like also very selfish. Like he hoards everything. Like I don't know, I thought he was fun here, and I kind of liked how at the end he learned to not be so selfish. And again, like I think it is a good lesson to like only not hang on to everything and not be a hoarder. Like again, this kind of ties in with Craig's lesson he has to learn because his closet is like full of all this junk that his mom says he has to get rid of. The only and again, there are some funny jokes. The only thing that's kind of weird is that again, the lesson is Craig shouldn't have all this junk. He should get rid of the stuff he doesn't need. But like multiple times in the episode, he uses his junk to get out of situations or help others. Like his one of the kids who are taking him to the junk pile are like, hey, we can take you there, but my bike tire's empty. So he just pulls something out of his junk bag and patch up the tire. And then later he helps a kid out of a tree with something from his junk bag. So he needs to get rid of it, but the episode shows that these things can be helpful to him. That was kind of weird, but like outside of that, this is a pretty good episode. I like this one. Next up is The Invitation, and this is where we meet the Tea Timers. And like this is the kind of antagonist of the show I like. Like they don't play the way the other kids play. They're like pretty much like, I'm assuming they're rich in real life, like their parents are probably rich, but like when they go to the creek, they're acting like those rich people who just sit around all day, like drinking tea and having very distinguished adult conversations. And again, like kind of what Craig, JP, and Kelsey getting invited to their little tea party. When it's revealed why, it's pretty interesting and like, yeah, it's a jerk thing to do, but like these are the kind of jerks I like. They're fun jerks. And again, this is an episode I actually think uses Jason pretty well. Like this is the point in the show where he starts to be like, okay, maybe he's not too bad. Like I do kind of like his appearance here. Like he does something mean, but like they do end up like showing he does feel bad about it, and the tea timers don't feel bad. There's not, and like there's some. The only complaint is like it's not particularly funny. It's not like a really funny episode. There are some kind of jokes where the joke is JP accidentally hit someone in the butt with a croquet mallet. And he says butt, and then one of the other guys laughs, and that's a joke. But like there are still funny jokes here, and there is like a botched Portal reference because at one point a character, I'm not going to reveal the context for this, the character says the cake is a fake, and all I could think is, no, it's the cake is a lie. That's the line. Say it right. But no, seriously, this is still a pretty good episode, and I do like the tea timers here. Next up is The Last Kid in the Creek. This is one of the few episodes in the show where I weirdly feel like the show only being 11 minutes per episode is can sometimes be a detriment because it feels pretty rushed. Like it just sort of starts with all the kids in the creek getting sick. So Craig goes and he finds out he's the last kid in the creek. He goes looking for everyone. Pretty much immediately, he's like, I gotta fix this. So he goes to find these witches that he met earlier and tries to get the curse reversed. And I'm just kind of like, if this were like a 22-minute episode, imagine like the stuff Craig could do around the creek. Like I remember the early episodes of The Last Man on Earth when Will Forte was by himself and he just did whatever he wanted and he came up with all this imaginative stuff. I'm kind of imagining, like, imagine some of the stuff Craig could do by himself in all these different environments from throughout the show. But they don't take advantage of that. They're just like, oh, he's by himself. Gotta get it fixed. It's like, again, it's not bad. I do still like the episode. It's just I imagine what it could have been if it just had more time to let Craig have fun being the last kid in the creek. Also, the witches are kind of characters I have mixed thoughts on. Like they're both just like their main gimmick is they're both just kind of jerks, which like again could be funny, but Craig and all the kids here are kind of implied to be either late elementary school or early middle school. And these witches are like clearly like middle of high school, maybe even late high school. They could be juniors or seniors. And they're picking on these kids who are like way younger than them. Like I guess not picking on them, but just like tricking them into doing these things. Like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we tricked this kid into drinking a disgusting shake? Like, okay, how do you have nothing better to do with your time than this? Maybe if they just made them like actual like they like again if they just had them like play along with the idea that Craig thinks they're witches, maybe that could be funny. But like every episode so far that they've been in has had them do something mean to the kids, and I'm like, okay, you're like way much older than them. This is kind of weird, but still good, entertaining episode with good moments. I did still enjoy it. Next up is Lost in the Sewers. This one's kind of weird because it has an interesting idea, but I don't think it utilizes it very well. Not even because, unlike the last episode, not because it's short, but just because of what they choose to do with it. Basically, there's this whole society of kids who don't live in the sewers but hang out there because they like to swim, but they all kind of have something up with them where the kids at the public pool make fun of them. So they're like, fine, we'll go like play in the sewers. And they literally make this like whole society down there. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. What are they going to do with this? The sewer queen gets lost because a tidal wave washes her away, and they look for her in the sewers. And that's it. That's the plot. I guess there's like a side thing where like Craig is trying to become like more decisive, like Sewer Queen is, because like, wow, she's really decisive. I really admire that about her. I want to be more like her. And like it does lead to a good lesson at the end where like Craig admits he doesn't always know what to do. So, but that doesn't mean that you should never listen to him because he's still trying, and so people do listen to him, and that's how they find the Sewer Queen. There are some fun moments here, like the introduction of the whole kingdom is nice. I do just like it is kind of cool just seeing it and all these different characters and subjects. And again, still has some pretty funny moments. Like I like the whole it kind of parodies the Star Wars scene where everyone gets their medals and Chewie doesn't get one literally because like Craig gets this like I forget what he gets, but it's something cool. Kelsey gets like a little toy, one of those like little Dyke cars or little Tykes cars that you can like pedal around in, and JP gets a firm handshake. And it's just he just stares at his hand the rest of the episode like, this is it. That was pretty funny. So yeah, still not bad. Definitely still a good episode. Just it feels like they could have done more with this idea. And again, it is weird because the only other time the sewer kids appear is a flashback to this very episode later on in the season. So hopefully they kind of do more with the sewer kids later on. Next up is Itch to Explore, the first episode of the show, and the one where I said, yeah, it was pretty good. I'll keep watching this. Again, this is kind of like an interesting idea because Craig, his whole thing is he wants to map out the entire creek. He wants to figure out where everything is and everyone kind of plays. But there's this one part of the creek no one's been to because it's surrounded by poison ivy. So they literally make these like makeshift hazmat suits out of garbage bags and go in and explore. And again, that's a pretty fun idea. Like, and again, I do kind of like just Craig kind of want, and again, just the idea of a kid who just he plays by just trying to make a map of the entire forest that the kids play, and I think is pretty interesting. And I do, and again, definitely kind of points, in my opinion, to him being on the spectrum, but whatever. And again, like the journey to get there, there are some. It is kind of suspenseful because like you don't want these kids to just get like infected with poison ivy, but you know their suits made out of garbage bags. They're pretty easy to puncture. There are some funny jokes here again. Like I like when JP just says, "My mom said that after the last doctor's visit, I've been cut off." So more suspense. Can't go to the doctors if he gets poison ivy this time. And when they do find out what's in like the center of this whole poison ivy grove, it's a pretty cool reveal. Won't spoil it here, but I liked what they did with it. Next up is Escape from Family Dinner. This one is more like just this one's just a funny episode. Like there are definitely quite a few funny jokes with the ways Craig kind of tries to get out of the family dinner so he can go back to the creek and partake in their little water gun war that's happening there. And again, some of these parts are pretty funny. I like when Craig tries to get out of it by claiming he's a vegan and then goes, let's grab some for the road, and grabs like a chicken wing immediately. I like some of the moments with the family as well. The ending scene where like Craig's kind of been hinting at that he's been having trouble in his math class as of late because it's implied he's in like sort of higher education classes. And the moment he has to talk about it with his mom and talk about all the stuff he's been going through, I liked. The only part of this episode I was kind of like mixed on was like, I don't know, I think the dad kind of gets a bit too mad at him when he gets like in trouble for like accidentally burning dinner later close to the end. I just think the dad overreacts a little bit, like not to but he literally says, "I'm just thinking about what I'm going to put on your tombstone." And I'm like, "Okay, dude, calm down." Wasn't that bad. Wasn't that big of a deal. But like still outside of that, this is still a fun episode. I like this. It was just funny. I like this episode. And again, just JP like quote unquote on the verge of death calling Craig like, "Tell your brother. I think he's a sharp dresser." And Craig just goes, no, he's not. Again, just this one's just funny. Next up is Jessica's Trail. This is what I was talking about earlier, the second episode that tries to move this whole overarching story forward. So it's kind of weird to talk about this before talking about the first episode that introduces this whole overarching plot. But I think I can do it. Like, definitely the best part of the episode is the Huckleberry Rangers. I believe that's what they're called. I could be wrong. Maybe it's Honeysuckle. It's the Honeysuckle Rangers. That's what they are. But yeah, they're both pretty fun. I like their contrast with how one of them is like a lot more calm, like, hey, it's okay. We're gonna get you. We just want to talk. And the other one's like, I am gonna kick your ass. Like, he doesn't say that, but like, it's pretty funny. I liked the part with Craig and Jessica's mom at the hairdresser, mostly because they got dang it, I forgot. She's the one who plays Peaches, and everybody hates Chris. So kind of disappointed Terry Crews wasn't in this episode. We could have had a mini reunion, but whatever. And again, I liked the gag with the little rocket ship outside of the hairdresser place. But like again, this is kind of like they're clearly trying to build something up that something bigger is coming. But again, it's been like 20 episodes since they introduced this plot. I'm like I had to remind myself, oh yeah, they're building something up, right? I don't know. I just feel like it should have been either built up a bit more consistently, or they should have grouped these two episodes a bit closer together to the end of this season if they wanted it to have more of an impact. Because as is, it's just kind of jarring to be like, oh yeah, right, forgot about that. And also, I just think again, this is kind of like Jessica as a character. I'm pretty mixed on. Some like when she's not used too much and she just has a couple lines in an episode, she can be pretty funny. But in episodes like this, where she has more of a focus, it's like okay, she transitions between like little girl who's basically an adult to just being a little girl, which like I don't know. At a certain point, it's like some of the things she does are so stupid. I'm like, okay, even if you're as smart as as the show claims you are, you wouldn't be doing something like this. Next up is the takeout mission. Again, now we're getting into like the higher echelon of 8 out of 10 episodes because this one I definitely like. I definitely liked quite a bit. Again, it's just funny because like it has like some pretty good gags like when Kelsey's like, "We're going to order takeout, guys. What do you want?" Craig's like, I don't care. Kelsey presents like 3 different options, and each one Craig doesn't like, and she goes, "Thought you didn't care." Like that's kind of an old gag. We've seen that before, but it's still pretty funny. I like JP pretending to be an adult because apparently they think kids can't order takeout. I like the scene where JP is like going out in the rain with an umbrella. He literally gets flung away and flies into the air with an umbrella. In my head, I was literally just screaming, "Umber Poppins, y'all!" And there are actually some pretty sweet moments because this is the episode. Like we've seen Kelsey's dad before, but this is the first one that gets more of a focus. It definitely has some sweet moments with Kelsey and her dad. The way he like plays into her whole thing of being a knight, I thought was nice. And the ending where like Kelsey, Craig, and JP have to make rice because they accidentally got the spicy kind that her dad can't handle. I like that. The only thing is that at times he can be a bit too intense, I think. Like at times, it's weird because like sometimes they kind of try to make him like a Ron Swanson or a Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine type character where he's like basically a robot, but then they kind of make him a robot. But then other times, like again, when he's like playing into Kelsey being a knight, it's like, wait, but like you were just like, how did that happen? You were like just a second ago, you were like all robot mode, and now you're like all, my knight, will you go and get the takeout? I trust you on this mission. These should not both be coming out of the same character so soon. That threw me a little, but the episode as a whole is still pretty fun. Next up is Mystery Girl. This is not an episode of Craig of the Creek. So again, I kind of have to go on a bit of a tangent, I guess, for this one. Again, if you watched Mr. Enter's video on Craig of the Creek, you'll know that not long after, he also reviewed Clarence for his CN Real series. And after that, another YouTuber, LS Mark, made a response video defending Clarence and specifically defending one episode that Mr. Enter said was fine, but nowhere near as good as an episode of Craig of the Creek that did something similar. Specifically, the episode Doorway to Helen was the Craig of the Creek episode, similar to Mystery Girl, the episode of Clarence. So I was kind of like, you know what? After I watch Doorway to Helen, I'm gonna watch Mystery Girl just to see if it's as good as LS Mark claims it is. And I actually found myself liking that episode. It was pretty sweet. Clarence is literally just like another show that's like about a kid going on these different adventures. And Clarence literally is like doing prank calls and meets a girl his age on the phone who he finds a lot in common with. Their whole dynamic is pretty sweet. There were some funny moments. I like the moments with Clarence and his mom as well. And I really liked the ending where at first the girl's like nervous to meet Clarence in person, so he just hides behind a tree and pretends to still talking on the phone until she's comfortable talking to him face to face. Like that's pretty sweet. I like that. Am I going to start watching Clarence as well? No, I am not, because the flaws in this episode tell me that as a whole, I would not like Clarence because I get the feeling that this episode is all the enjoyment I'm gonna get out of it. Because there are a lot of gross out jokes. Like there are some gross out jokes in Craig of the Creek, but there are a ton more in Clarence. Even in that episode, there are some moments where I'm like, oh, it's funny because it's gross. Cool. And Clarence's voice, like, I'm very conflicted on. Like, on the one hand, it sometimes does sound like like one of the most realistic adult doing a kid voices I've heard. But then other times, he literally sounds, what is the polite way to say this? He sounds slow. Like, I'm sorry, but he does. It sounds so weird. And I don't think he's supposed to sound like that, but it just doesn't sound right. So even the main character's voice in this episode I like and give a good solid 8 out of 10. I have to just sort of put up with the main character's voice. And at that point I'm just like, I think I'm good. I think that's all the Clarence I need. That was a weird tangent, I'm aware, but if you were there during the Mr. Enter, Ellis Mark, Craig of the Creek, Clarence drama, at the time, I watched that episode a lot closer when that video came out, so it made a lot more sense to do then. Next up is Kelsey Quest. We're back to Craig of the Creek now. And again, this one is also very fun. This one's also pretty funny. Like, it's like Kelsey has to defend the elders of the creek from this bully, and you can kind of guess the joke right from there that the bully's actually not going to be very intimidating. But like what they end up doing with the bully, I thought was pretty funny. I liked the fight between the bully and Kelsey. I like the training montage Kelsey goes through to kind of prepare for the fight. And I think there are definitely some nice moments here. Like I like when she's like, I'm going to need 2 young squires to help me train. And Craig and JP are like, me, why is she picking me, Craig? Why is she picking me? Like stuff like that. Again, just shows how good friends these 3 are. And it's really nice. It's just a good episode. I definitely, like, not every individual joke works. That's, I guess, my one flaw. But, like, again, this is still definitely a high 8 out of 10 episode. And speaking of 8 out of 10, that's all. I think that's all the 8 out of 10s. We're now transitioning into the episodes. I would rate a low 9. We're at the low 9 out of 10 now. That's not, and we have quite a few episodes to go. Sweet. Next up is The Climb. Again, this is an episode that just sort of has a simple premise, but it has fun with it. Craig, Kelsey, and JP need to climb this giant tree in the creek because Craig gets his phone stuck at the top. Right away, I just think it's kind of funny that like the scene where Craig loses his phone, he's like, maybe my parents won't notice. And then he goes home and they're like, Craig, where's your phone? We tried to call you. You don't have your phone. You need to go get your phone. Like, I'm so used to television episodes where parents are like, get off your phone. And now we have one where the parents are like, go get your phone. I just think that's kind of funny. Probably just a me thing, though. But yeah, I think I like the scenes where they're climbing. It feels very atmospheric. I like sort of the scene where they go to these kids who all they do is climb up these rocks to sort of help prepare for the climb up the tree. And again, the scene where there's some pretty funny scenes too, like when they encounter a beehive and they act like JP died after he got stung. That was pretty funny. It wasn't just a solid episode, and definitely is one of the episodes I can say has a good atmosphere. Next up is Deep Creek Salvage. This is another one that's just funny. Like, this just has a lot of funny moments. Like, basically, they think they see something valuable at the bottom of the creek, but they're like, "Oh, we can't just go in there and get it. The creek is disgusting." So they make this whole pulley system where they can like get a bit claw type thing and like basically fish stuff out of the creek to try and get to the valuable thing they think they see. Again, I can kind of guess the punchline that like it's not going to be something valuable, but just like the journey to get there, I like. And I again, like I like the way this episode does bring back the "just like I drew it" line. That was pretty cool. I like the when they all kind of fantasize about what they're gonna use the money to buy. Again, even like the fact that Craig is gonna use his money to buy his brother's room just so he can like prove that like he's like deserves to be valued as much as his brother, and then he's gonna like kick his brother out to live in a mansion at the creek, which is nicer than the room he already lives in, but he's gonna be upset just because Craig proved he's a man, which is and again just like such a simultaneously such a little kid thing to think, but also like no kid, but also kind of no kid would think that, if that makes any sense. It's like so ridiculous, it's just funny. And there are definitely a lot of funny moments here. And again, I do like the message that like even though the thing they didn't get was they got was not valuable, they still cleaned up the creek, and and some of the kids appreciate them for doing that. So that was nice. Next up is Jextra Terrestrial. If you don't understand the joke, it's extraterrestrial, but they replaced the first letter of each word with JP's initials. Again, this one's just funny. Like the episodes that revolve around JP are usually just really funny, and therefore I rank them pretty high. Like again, basically JP's sister says one thing about "you are not human," so he immediately goes to "I must be an alien because no kids like me." And again, it is just funny, but also it is kind of sad that like he genuinely feels like he doesn't belong with other kids. But the resolution with JP and his sister when he tells her, "You said I wasn't human," she's like, "I didn't mean that literally." Like, but again, the conversation they have at the end is nice. And like I do, and the only like again, just a lot of funny moments here. The only issue I have is this is another episode with Jason, and I don't know. It just felt kind of out of nowhere. Like one of his friends are like, JP said he's an alien, so he must be an alien. And I feel like somebody like Jason, who's like very much a rule follower and like knows a lot about nature, would be like, "Don't be stupid. They just probably playing pretend." But no, he immediately buys in. He must be an alien. If we send him to the government to dissect, then that means we're gonna get badges. And I'm like, okay, like this, I don't know, that conflict I thought was a bit forced, but still really solid episode, pretty dang funny. Next up is The Curse, and this is the introduction to the witch characters I mentioned earlier. And even though like I said earlier they kind of just spend most of their time picking on these like kind of tricking these kids into doing things, the very least here, like when they first do that, they're clearly shown as the antagonists of the episode, and B, later on they clearly feel bad, and they when they put this bad luck curse on them. At the end, when Craig, Kelsey, and JP actually help them out, the witches clearly feel bad and like, okay, well let's make something up to like make them think that they're cured. Again, like when they actually are cursed, some of the things that they go through are pretty funny. Like I like when literally everything Craig's morning goes bad for him. I like JP not realizing he has an entire soda bottle just stuck to his head. He somehow doesn't realize this. And again, just some individual funny lines like this old guy who chases them all at the end, but they get away. He's like, maybe if you trusted your daughter, you wouldn't be out here in the creek in the woods at night with one missing sandal. I don't know, just the way he delivered it. I thought, again, that's another thing. The voice acting is not only good in this show, a lot of them have very distinct voices that really help make lines that wouldn't be funny otherwise pretty dang funny. And I do just like and I do just like again little touches that like it's weird to like call little scenes adorable, but like again, I just like after Craig accidentally pokes his foot on I believe his name is Sharp Objects Man, like on his Sharp Objects Man doll. Again, the way he like puts on these dinosaur slippers and goes, "Gotta protect my tootsies." I don't know. Again, like part of it is the delivery, but I'm just like, well, that's just a cute little kid moment right there. I like that. And yeah, so definitely makes up for like again, at least in this episode, they know the witches are not the protagonists. Next up is Sunday Clothes, another JP episode, another episode that's just really funny. Like again, like some of the way that JP apparently messes up his clothes so much, literally all he has to wear are this like really fancy tuxedo type thing that he has for his that he says is his Sunday best. The ways that he tries to like avoid getting messy are pretty funny. And again, like when these two kids who are in a paintball war see this kid in a suit and they're like, maybe he can help negotiate a truce because he's wearing a suit. He's got to be smart. And again, just this scene of JP helping these kids negotiate is pretty funny. I really like that scene. And I do like I do like the resolution where it's like he's still kind of messed up, but at the very least his sister acknowledges, you know what, he at least didn't break this really important rule, so that's something. And he did do it to help his friends. So that's something. Next up is The Future is Cardboard. This is like something the show does where like unlike the episode with the Sewer Kingdom where I'm like you could make multiple series of episodes about this and the first time you show it you just kind of show it and then do nothing interesting with it. This another one thing the show does is it has these weird premises that should only work for an episode, but they utilize them so well. Maybe because they're like, yeah, this only can work for one episode. We should pretty much just put our best foot forward with it. Like this kid just makes an entire city out of cardboard, and but like again, the lengths to which he goes to make it a functional city are just so are just so wild. It's like how the heck did he do this? And again, and like he literally has a sink that has running water. And Kelsey and JP are bored, and I'm like, okay, I would at least be somewhat interested in how he got the running water and cardboard to work. Like, come on. Y'all are just being a bit close minded to this. And again, I do like, again, like when they start working in the play aspects, like when the kid turns the city into a giant robot. When, like, again, like Craig tries to get into the control room and there's like a fake monitor that like shows what's outside and it's literally just a drawing of Craig with like angry eyebrows. That was pretty funny. And the way Craig destroys the robot by just pretending to be an angry cat, like, I'm angry at my owner, where's my food? And he starts knocking everything over was pretty funny. And just the second cardboard city that the kid making the robot got kicked out of, I thought was pretty interesting. Again, not something I want to see another episode on, but like they definitely utilized this one episode concept pretty well. Next up is Dinner at the Creek. Again, this one's all not only funny but also has some nice moments with Bernard, which will lead me to talking about him some more. Again, just the funny moments, just Craig, Kelsey, and JP trying to conjure up dinner at the creek leads to a lot of funny moments. Like they need to get these nuts from these squirrels, so Kelsey has this whole plan where she's like, "We will integrate ourselves into their society, and eventually we will mutate into squirrel-human hybrids." Craig's like, "I don't have time for that." So Kelsey's like, "Fine, JP, go squish some of them so we can get their food." She doesn't say squish them, but she's like, just go attack them and take their food. Again, like stuff like that's pretty funny. And when like Kelsey gets like they need to get some apples from the top of a tree, so Kelsey gets her sword stuck, and then JP gets all his clothes stuck up there. It's kind of weird how many times in this season JP has like lost most of his clothes, so he's been in his underwear or even not even in that. So that's a little weird, but well, whatever. It's a kids show. I'm sure they didn't think that much about that. And again, just sort of the idea of like Craig wanting to do this to show he can kind of be independent is kind of nice. And it does lead to a nice ending where at first, because like the reason he's going to have dinner at the creek is because Bernard's in charge of dinner and he's being very like stuck up about it. So Craig's like, I don't even want your dinner. But then when he goes home, he sees Bernard's only being stuck up about it because he wanted to prove to the parents that he could be responsible. that was and Craig did try and be supportive of him and be like, "Hey, even though you ruined dinner, it's all right. We can still eat it as long as we cover it with melted cheese." To the point where they literally all they can taste is the cheese. That was pretty funny. And again, just a nice moment. Which again, at least talking about Bernard, I like him. Like he is definitely a character I'm glad doesn't appear more because I feel like it could get annoying if they use him too much. But like the way he tries to be all studious, like in an earlier episode, he literally ate something called bland O's. That was kind of funny. And again, he does have some sweet moments when he actually does want to be a good older brother to Craig when he's not like focused on his own thing. And even good older brother Jessica. Now that I think about it, because he has a couple good moments with her too. Next up is Bug City. Like again, this one just showing Craig's ADHD, where he finds these bugs that he's scared are gonna get squished, so he literally makes them a city. And when the bugs try and leave, like, no, don't leave. You don't like me. Why don't you like me? Like again, and again, I do like how he consults his grandma, who's a literal like city planner, into like how he can make this city, but he doesn't want to say it's a city for bugs, so he kind of phrases it like, if your citizens aren't happy with us, if your constituents aren't happy with a city, how would you go about fixing that? And again, I do like Craig's grandparents as well. They're really good characters. I like whenever they show up, and I do like again, there are definitely funny moments with just Craig and the Spug City he makes, and I like at the end when Kelsey's bird just destroys it like Godzilla. That was pretty funny. And like the only my only complaint is that like Craig and like Kelsey and JP start out really interested in the bugs and they actually want to help Craig, but then randomly at some point, basically the first time the bird tries to eat the bugs, but Craig stops him. Kelsey's like, "Craig, what is wrong with you?" And then they get really uninterested in the bugs. I'm like, how did you change that your interest that fast? That is kind of something like Kelsey and JP, like their interests in what Craig is interested in can vary based on what the plot demands, and that's kind of weird sometimes. But this is still a good episode. I think it's pretty funny. It has a nice little premise, ISO lesson for Craig. I like this one. Next up is Dog Decider. Again, this is just a weird premise. Like, it's weird, but like the fact that it's only in this one episode is what makes it work because they just do everything they can with it. Basically, Craig meets this religion at the creek that's centered around a dog that they put two options in front of, and whatever the dog licks is what they decide to do. So, and Craig follows the dog's advice at first, and he's like, man, this actually worked out really well for me. So literally every small decision in his life he bases on what the dog says to do. Like literally in the middle of a card game, he'll like leave, ask the dog to lick which card he should do, and then he goes back and plays that card. He does this multiple times. And again, just the card game. That card game is like again one of the funniest moments of the show because literally the cards are like all ducks except for geese. So it's like just a card game version of Duck Duck Goose. And JP just keeps laying down duck, and Kelsey just gets so pissed at him, like, I am sick of your mind games, JP. Like again, just like moments like that, they're just so weird. They just make me laugh so hard. And there are definitely a lot of other funny moments too. Like literally, the owners of the dog are splitting up. Like they're like breaking up. They're both heartbroken about it, and they're both and they're like, no, because she's taking the dog. The girl's taking the dog, and they're like, no. So like trying to persuade this guy to like, you have to call her back. You have to get her back here because they need the dog. And they don't care about this guy. He's like he tries to call her back. He's like, can we give another chance? She's like, no. And nobody cares. This poor man's getting his heart ripped out. Nobody cares. They just care about the dog. But yeah, this is a funny episode that takes a admittedly kind of weird premise, but does the best it can with it. And I think it was definitely one of those episodes that worked best as a one-off. Next up is Power Punchers. This one is mostly fun because it has a lot of cool video game references, so I like that. Basically, Craig is trying to play this game with his dad, but his dad keeps beating him, so he goes to one of the elders of the creek, when he finds out they're actually really good at the game and asks them to teach him. Like, it definitely feels like this feels like it was definitely, you can tell this episode is made by people who play these types of fighting games, because because it doesn't just feel like people who don't know what video games are. Like, these people clearly know video games, so that's pretty cool, all the stuff that they know. It's another pretty funny episode because, again, just like when the elder tries to hide in Craig's house, he just hides in his very obvious hiding spot. And when he gets caught, he's like, "Very lovely home you have here, sir." Again and again, like, just when they do show the video game and like it looks like a real video game, and they actually do a good job of making it look like a game you would want to play. So that's pretty cool. The only thing that's kind of weird is how upset the dad gets when he finds out Craig's playing the game with someone else. Like, it's a video game and he's a kid. He's not allowed to play a video game with his friends. He only's allowed to play with you. Like, okay, like, I get that it's your guys' thing to play this specific game, but like, I feel like he should be allowed to play a game with other kids. I think he overreacts a little bit to that. But still, overall, good episode. I enjoyed the video game stuff in it. Next up is You're It. This was the second episode of the show. And this is when I kind of was like, okay, I think I'm really going to like this. Because, again, seems like a simple premise, just it's tag. And like, you'd think, okay, tag, that can't be that interesting. But it gets interesting because it's not just, oh, we're going to play tag now. It's like this whole idea of like, Kelsey gets tagged by this kid who's like been tagged for like a long time. And this game basically goes back to like when nobody even knows when the game started because the game's been around for so long, which is kind of crazy. But like, it's also pretty interesting that, like, again, this feels like something a bunch of kids in like who play together would do. And again, it is just kind of fun seeing Kelsey kind of stealthily try and tag someone and then be like, no, I need it to be like an actual challenge. And then she tries to tag Jason. So something bad almost happens to him, which is nice. And again, this also has some pretty funny moments. Like, I like when one of the elders tries to pay for something at the Creek shop with Bitcoin. That was funny. And I like the way that they ultimately resolve the tag game they take it out of the creek by tagging Craig's older brother, who's like, "This is stupid. I'm going home." And so Tag has indeed left the creek. Although technically, if he's it, wouldn't anytime he touches Craig technically make Craig it? Whatever. It's a fun episode. Next up is Big Pinchy. Again, this is like another pretty fun adventure episode where Craig, Kelsey, and JP try and find this giant crawdad that JP says he saw one time. And again, this is like not only a fun adventure episode where they're just going to these different places to try and track down where the crawdad would be, but also, like, again, it's just a funny episode because literally JP is like, what, like when they try and start where JP first thought he saw the crawdad. He's like, well, I started here, and then I got distracted by a butterfly, so I ran all over here. And just the silly ways that he's like, okay, and then I went here, and then I got over here, and then I went to this neighbor's yard, and they for some reason don't want me in their yard, so then I left. Like, just JP being very funny. And again, I do like how there is a lesson here where like Craig at first wants to find Big Pinchy only because Jason was like, "There's no crawdad that big in the creek. That's stupid." But then Kelsey and JP remind him that it's not that. It's not proving things to others that's important. It's the memories. Only for them to find the crawdad and JP to be like, "I want pictures, Craig." So they take a bunch of pictures with it. That was pretty funny. Yeah, this is just another good adventure episode that had some good funny moments. Next up is The Brood. The Brood. It's like a swarm. It means a swarm of cicadas. It's not the horror film The Brood. It's not very it's kind of broody, I guess. So like they get stuck in their stump because there's a whole swarm of cicadas outside the stump, so they can't leave. And again, this is like another good episode that showcases Craig as a character because the only reason they even are surrounded by cicadas is because Craig accidentally broke this exoskeleton of a cicada that his grandpa had. So it's like, well, I need to find another one now. So he like goes to this cicada nest and then he gets a cicada, but then all the cicadas follow them to the stump, so they're stuck there now. And again, just like the disappointment Craig feels not only in himself first for breaking the exoskeleton and then for trapping his friends. And again, at least some nice sweet moments of them being like, well, if we weren't trapped in this stump, what would we be doing? Our life, we're here. We're still happy we're here with you, Craig. Again, just shows the camaraderie between the three of them very well. And again, just some pretty funny, and again, just some nice funny moments here and there, like when JP does stand up with the trapped cicada while they wait for it to molt. And a pretty funny moment where like send out an SOS message saying first five retreat rescuers will get ice cream. And of course, Jason's the one who gets the message, so he like goes to save them. But when he finds out they have no ice cream, he literally takes the big car they got in the sewer episode and rides off. Again, just JP goes, man, he's a rump. Again, that's just there's some funny moments here, but it also is just sweet that this episode does a good job showing the friendship between these characters. Next up is Secret Book Club. And now I get to talk about Stacks. She's cool. I like her. Like, not a lot to her. Just, again, she connects to Kelsey's literary side because Kelsey loves fantasy novels. And JP and Craig aren't very interested. But this stuff, but again, like, she actually, it's funny because, like, her and Stacks are talking, like, kids don't want to read because they see it as homework, even if they're just doing it for fun. So they literally make this whole elaborate secret book club to trick Craig and JP into getting interested in reading. And then they actually just get sucked in. That's pretty, I like that idea. And again, another kid finds the book at the end and actually wants to join the secret club. That's pretty funny. And again, I do just like some of the elaborate ways Kelsey and Stacks try and convince Craig and JP that this is a real secret society where they like have to eat pages from a book as initiation, and their code names are the pages that they ate. Like Craig is page 9 and JP is table of contents. And the only part that's kind of annoying is that like Kelsey just made a whole point about how kids shouldn't see books as homework, but then when she finds out Craig and JP aren't reading the book as fast as she wants them to, she's like, no, this is not acceptable. You're going to read chapter 5 by tomorrow. You're going to get to chapter 5 by tomorrow and be ready to talk about it with me. It's like, aren't you literally turning it into homework like you said reading shouldn't be? I thought they were going to address that later, but this is another case where like there's a lesson I thought they were going to teach, but then they didn't because Craig and JP just got sucked more into the book as they read more of it. Whatever. Still a nice, funny episode. Next up is Under the Overpass. So we have the first instance of them trying to start this whole overarching story. And what you're thinking, didn't I complain earlier about how I don't like the overarching story? Well, again, I didn't realize how little it was going to be shown. So when it first appeared, I actually was pretty interested in what was going to happen. Like, basically, Craig, Kelsey, and JP actually go underneath this overpass that separates the two halves of the creek. And they find all these weird markings and carvings underneath. And there's this weird archer kid who like is very adamant about them not going to the other side of the creek. But like you find out that he's not doing it because he's like, oh, you're not going to get the treasures in there. He's clearly protecting them from something on the other side. We just don't know yet. So it is pretty interesting. So you are interested at first to know what it's going to be. But again, kind of as the season goes on and they forget to go back to this, I just kind of forget about it. And then by the time they finally get back to it, I'm like, oh yeah, this. Okay. But again, I will say, for initially trying to hook you, it does a good job. And again, there are some funny moments, like JP has this whole thing where he's obsessed with these two dino claw things that he uses his hands that's pretty funny. And again, I just think this is an interesting introduction to the overarching story, and I guess we'll see where it ends up going in the next season. Next up is The Mystery of the Timekeeper. And this is where I get to talk. So, like, the way the kids... Again, this is a good way to show how the world building in this show is pretty good. One of the better examples in, like, a kids show like this. Because the way the kids are always able to know when it's time to go home and go to dinner is because this kid, all she does is sit in a tree, look at the clock, and when it gets 5 o'clock, she blows a horn and goes, dinner! And then everyone knows to go home. Well, what if she forgot daylight savings time, though? and then the kids end up getting home 30 minutes late. And literally every single one of them gets grounded and can't go to the creek next day. Like every single one, I think is a bit unbelievable, but whatever. Again, so and she literally vanishes. So now Craig, Kelsey, and JP take it upon themselves to take on the role of the timekeeper. And again, the fact that they each kind of face different, it's not just the same challenge each of them face. Craig just gets bored. JP accident and like almost and is like looking forward to when he finally gets to. Well, what they do is they bang a drum and shout dinner. Craig gets bored and is like, finally I get to bang the drum. JP accidentally bangs the drum too early, so kids end up going home at like 3. And Kelsey accidentally gets too sucked up in a book and she bangs the drum late. And some of the kids get grounded because apparently for some parents 5:15 is fine, but for others it's not. Whatever. And again, these are all funny moments, but it's actually interesting when they do find the timekeeper. And she says that she's nervous around other kids, but this is kind of her way of playing along with them. Again, just does a good job of showing like that there is more to these characters, even the side ones who get like barely any screen time than initially shown. Next up is Creek Cart Racers. This is where I find out they kind of did Junklord dirty because, like I said, I liked when they redeemed him at the end of his episode, but now all of a sudden he's just like back to being selfish. Like, no, they like Craig, Kelsey, and JP go to him to make parts for a race cart, and he's like, no, you can't have them. But again, I guess, but it is pretty funny the way they convince him to like he gives them the car parts because he's loaning it to them because he's sponsoring the car, and they literally just write his name on the car like it's NASCAR and he's their sponsor. That's pretty funny. They also misspell his name, so it spells Lorde. So all I could think of is that stupid "I Am Lord" song from South Park. And again, it is pretty funny when Craig and Kelsey remind JP, who's driving the car, that like you need to win the race, JP, or else we won't be able to swim in that rich kid's pool. And Jean-Claude next to them just goes, "I know, we all know that. We all know the stakes of this situation. Stop. You don't need to repeat it." Which is pretty funny because they played that moment at the beginning too to kind of set things up. So it's pretty funny parody of those whole "I bet you're wondering how I got here" openings in like TV and movies. Yeah, I get, and again, like when they get to the race, it's pretty fun. Like again, I like how they kind of parody Speed Racer with Jason disguising himself as this Mr. X character, I believe is what he calls himself, and he's like, when I win and then take off my mask at the end and reveal that I'm Jason, they'll all respect me. And literally everyone knows it's him, so he's not fooling anybody. Like the only complaint is like this is another consequence of the episodes all being 11 minutes. The race is very short. Like you spend a good half of the episode preparing for the race, which makes sense, but then the race itself only ends up being like 3 minutes. Feels like they could have had more fun with like with different kids at the creek taking part in like a race in these soapbox cars if they had more time, but like it's like, oh well, we've just got to get like the basics down. So the tea timers throw some stuff at JP's cart. He crashes. He's like, I can't do this. He gets a motivational speech, and then he's like, oh, I can do this, and then he wins. It's like it's like, okay, you could have. I feel like you could have done a lot more with this if you had more time to focus on the race itself. But still, it is a fun episode. I definitely enjoyed it. Next up is Bring Out Your Beast. Again, this is definitely evidence that the people who write this show are nerds, because, well, not nerds in a positive, endearing way, because this episode's all about a Pokemon type game called Bring Out Your Beast. And again, you can tell that like the writers play a lot of these types of card games because they acknowledge there are just these cards that are like absolute duds, not going to do anything. And then there are cards that are like insanely overpowered to the point where they get banned in tournament use, which is pretty funny. And again, like the sequences where they play the card game are pretty fun. You do want to see Craig and Bernard win by the end. It gives us some, which again, them playing this game together and Bernard like letting Craig take the reins leads to some nice bonding moments with them. And again, just some funny moments like when Bernard finds out Craig took his cards, but Craig left the really like the band card, which is the most valuable. He like buried it at the creek instead of just taking it back to his house for some reason. And the note he like leaves in the card's place just says, "I came to life and took a stroll." Like again, the fact that he thinks his older brother's gonna fall for this very little kid move, which is pretty funny. Yeah, again, this is just a fun episode, and yeah, at this point we're definitely getting into like the best episodes of the season, like solid 9 out of 10s. Like not just lower half, verging on 9 out of 10. We're at the solid 9 out of 10, almost like getting close to 10 out of 10 territory at this point. Next up is Alone Quest. Like this one's kind of like pretty mixed tonally, admittedly. Which again is weird to say when we're like in the top 10. We're pretty much in the top 10 best episodes of the season at this point. Kind of weird, but like kind of weird thing for me to say about this episode. But again, they are both good. Just they're so different in tones. It does clash a little bit. Like Craig and JP's whole thing is that Craig needs to go to the bathroom, but they can't find a place for him to go to the bathroom because there are problems they keep running into. Like sometimes that can be that can be funny. Like I like when they try to go to JP's house, but like they can't open the door. There's a spider on the handle. Time to go somewhere else. JP refers to himself as daddy. He's like, Daddy's going to take care of this. I don't know how to feel about that. And again, like Jessica not wanting to let Craig in because he might be wearing a mask. And when Craig leaves while she's trying to figure out how to open the door, which again, she like watches finance networks, but she doesn't know how to open a door. But again, when she finally opens the door and Craig's gone, she's like, "It was a ghost!" Again, stuff like that's pretty funny. And when Craig and JP make Kelsey's dad think something bad happened to her because they go to his house and Kelsey's not with them, he's like, "You gotta tell him, Craig." And the dad gets so worried. But Craig just has to go to the bathroom. That's pretty funny the way they like make him just like the way he's like, oh, what happened? I'm not mad. Just please tell me what happened. Again, it's kind of dark, but it's pretty funny. And meanwhile, you have Kelsey by herself, which I believe this is the first time we've seen her like without Craig and JP for most of the episode. And again, we do actually like this is actually pretty interesting because like when you just see her by herself, like she just sort of like again you would expect her to like sword train or something, but she just kind of like she writes a book that we didn't know she was writing, which is pretty interesting. She like acts out like what she's trying to write to help her move the writing process along. She like gets distracted by a squirrel and just starts chopping at leaves until she ends up in a meadow and starts rolling around in it, which she responds with, "It was a good day, Mom." And like again, we haven't seen her mom. They haven't really mentioned her, so it's like that is kind of like giving you an idea of what's happening. That there is definitely more going on with her and her parents than we know so far. And again, I do, and like again, just sort of like when she and again, just it is kind of it's really funny when she and like her bird gets hungry, so she tries to take him to a bird feeder. And what that scene is also definitely funniest part of the whole episode. And again, yeah, like again, these tones contrast a bit because Kelsey stuff is trying to be a bit more like melancholy, but Craig and JP have like all this hectic stuff going on, rushing from house to house and keep running into problems. And that's really the only problem though, because they do both work well on their own, and one's really funny and one's touching, so it works overall as a whole. Just it clashes a bit. Next up is The Shortcut. Like this one is the first episode that really dives more into Kit, who runs the Creek store that I mentioned earlier, the trading tree. And like again, this one does have differing tones, but this one does it better, I think. Because like you have Craig and Kit who are like trying to get these popsicles from Kit's grandma's house to the Creek store when it's a hot day, but they get trapped by this troll on a bridge who like he's like, "I'm going to tell you a riddle." And it's literally just a bunch of puns and like this joke book that he bought that they have to guess, which is pretty funny. And again, it is just sweet, like seeing Kit and her grandma, and like the fact that like she gets her stuff from her grandma when she trades them for good grades on a report card, which which is similar to how Kit has kids trade stuff they have for the stuff she has, which is I like that. That's pretty nice. And yeah, that's just a sweet scene. And then you have JP and Kelsey running the trading tree into the ground because neither of them know how to run a business properly. And the way that they fight about how to run it, that's just pretty funny. Again, it contrasts a bit, but definitely not as much. And again, it does. Both side plots are good. Both plots are good, and I like them, and they work well together. Next up is the final book. Again, this one is both fun and also pretty like has a good premise where like they kind of try and become detectives trying to solve the mystery of where this last book in a series that Kelsey's reading has gone, because some kid checked out of the library but they can't find it. So what are they going to do? Like, I was able to guess pretty early on who took it, but that's just me. I think it's pretty obvious, but whatever. And again, it is pretty funny the way Craig compares what they're doing to this like mystery book that he's reading, which is a pretty obvious parody of like the Babysitter's Club. And again, just like literally the first thing he says is, well, there's this murder that they're trying to solve, and they don't call the cops. So what we should do is not call the cops. Again, like just the way he like compares these two things is pretty funny. Especially when Bernard like finds out Craig's reading that book, is like, dude, those are the most basic mysteries ever. It's the first person. It's always the first person they meet is the culprit, which does tie into them trying to find out who took the book because it was the first person they met, Stacks. And it is pretty. All of the stuff leading to how they solve the mystery is pretty funny, and it is just kind of cool. Again, we get to see more areas of the creek. Like this is the first time we see the ninja kids at the waterfall. First time we see the horse girls in the meadow, and again, they're all pretty fun characters to get to see here. But even after all that, there's a pretty nice scene at the end where Stacks reveals why she took the book. Because she didn't want Kelsey to stop coming to visit her and talking about these books. And Kelsey ends up introducing her to a new book series they can read together, which is pretty nice. Again, this is just a nice episode. This it's funny and also has some nice moments with the characters. Next up is A Doorway to Helen. That's right, we're finally at the episode that tied into that random Clarence episode I threw in earlier. And again, this is just again pure peak like world building and coming up with like showcasing kids' imaginations in this show so far. Like again, Craig loses homework at the creek, and when he finds out this other kid who he's never met before, Helen, wrote on it. So he kind of so he leaves a note to thank her, and then she leaves a note for him, and they kind of become pen pals just by dropping letters off at this one spot, which is and again, that's already nice. And again, you find out that like the reason they don't see each other is because, well, we know why. It's because she's home. It's like literally she says, my mom is my teacher and I can't eat, my parents don't let me eat chocolate. Like you can figure out right away that like, oh, she's homeschooled and has dietary restrictions. But immediately Craig, Kelsey, and JP are like, she's from another dimension. And this is the only way we can communicate with her. Which again, that's already pretty fun. And like, I like how the way that Craig and Helen talk about the creek contrast, but it's clear they both bond over their shared love for it. Like when Helen's like, in this one spot, I can just sit in the sun and warm myself up. And then when Craig, Kelsey, and JP go, they're like freezing because it's like all shadowy. That's pretty funny. And when they go to this like science kid who finds a way for them to be able to cross the dimensions, and like they make this whole elaborate thing that like again obviously isn't real, but like it's obviously not them actually crossing dimensions, but like the seriousness they take it, you're able to actually buy into and be like, oh man, I hope that they're able to meet I hope that Craig's able to meet Helen finally. And like the moment that they finally meet is pretty bittersweet, but like again, it does have a nice ending. And the only thing that's disappointing is like again, I looked it up just because I wanted to see if this character ever comes back. As far as I know, she does. As far as I can tell, she does not, which is pretty disappointing. But whatever. Next up is Monster in the Garden. This one's just a really nice episode. I just really find this one very charming. Like I already said I love the grandparents in this, and here it's all about Craig and his grandparents, and it's really nice. I love Craig and his grandpa bonding over them building this fence around his garden so that the animals don't get in. I like Craig's immediate conclusion is it must be a werewolf. Gotta be a werewolf. And again, the phone calls. He has some good comedy with the phone calls that Craig makes to JP and Kelsey throughout the episode, because because he's like visiting his grandparents at their house. And the fact that JP is like, wait, you're both here, but I'm already hanging out with Craig and with two kids named Craig and Kelsey. And we meet these two kids that we've never seen before and never see again. And already I'm like, okay, I want to know this other Craig and Kelsey stories. I want to know how they met JP. I already want to know so much about this. And again, it is just fun. And again, it is pretty nice just seeing Craig and his grandpa work together to try and figure out what's going on with the garden. It's very simple, but very effective. I like it. I like it a lot. And finally, best episode of this season. Sorry about that. Number 1, J Pony. That's right, JP episode is my favorite. And this is the one episode this season I would give a solid 10 out of 10. This is we have the 10 out of 10 episode, everybody. Good job. Good job, makers of the episode. But yeah, this one is, like, obviously it's JP starring JP, so it's obviously very funny. And yeah, there's a lot of really funny moments here, like to me, the now classic bit where JP makes up a dance called Do the JP and he sings a whole song with it. And again, just a lot of funny moments of him like trying to bond with the horse girls and Craig and Kelsey also trying to bond with the horse girls. Which I find interesting, by the way. They spend multiple days here and do not get bored. But when it's Craig's interests and he asks JP and Kelsey to be interested in it for more than a day, they seem to drop that interest pretty quick. Interesting. But again, that's just like, that's not even a criticism. That's just a thing I noticed. But again, there are a lot of funny moments here, but also a lot of sweet moments, because the whole reason JP wants to bond with the horse girls is because this one girl, Maney, clearly has a crush on him, and she's like, you make a good horse. And he's like, nobody ever told me to make a good anything. So he wants to bond with this girl who clearly sees, like, who thinks he can, like, be good at something, which is being a horse. And again, just the moments with them are very sweet, and it's just a cute little thing with them. And I like the way he also bonds with 2 of the other horse girls, and the way the horse girl's like hesitant about letting JP in. By the end, like, she does something kind of bad at the end, but by the end she does feel bad, so that's nice at least. And again, I like how JP is like, I don't belong here. I ain't a horse like y'all. I'm as dedicated to being horses as you, but we can still hang out sometimes, you know? Again, just a very nice moment. And again, great comedy when JP's like, I'm not a horse, I'm a truck! And he's just literally and again, even like the animation does a great job of visually showing these kids' imaginations, because multiple times in the episode it'll like show from their point of view. So it'll show JP, Maney, and the other horse girls as horses. But one of the horse girls is like clearly not as into it as her friends. Like, she dropped out of the horse fad a while ago. So literally whenever it shows her as a horse, it just shows her with this horse mask on. Like, that is almost, I would call, brilliant in terms of just showing that how disconnected she feels from her friends, but she doesn't want to say it. That's downright brilliant, and I love little details like that. There's tons of stuff like that in the show I didn't bring up, but because I'm trying to keep this as short as I can, even though I'm at like almost an hour and a half at this point. But like, again, just moments like that just that also push me to loving this show the way I do. And yeah, that's Craig of the Creek season 1. Every episode ranked. Hopefully, I was able to keep that at least somewhat interesting, because I sat here talking about 40 episodes of a show for like over an hour. Hopefully that was at least somewhat interesting. And as for the season as a whole, like I said, enjoyed it. Looking forward to getting to watch season 2. Who knows when, if my schedule changes a lot, so I don't know when I'll have time to watch it. But I'm going to give Craig of the Creek season 1 an A-. So those are my thoughts. If you have seen Craig of the Creek season 1, be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below, and let me know what some of your favorite episodes are. And if you have any episodes you would say are your least favorites, let me know what those are too. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Be sure to subscribe to see more reviews like this in the future. And on that note, I will see you next time. Have a great day.